Hey everybody, Danielle Hargenrader here. Welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Today I'm really excited to bring you another awesome guest who is thriving with type 1. Chris Ruden is a 7-fingered diabetic elite powerlifter who has recently begun to focus on motivational speaking. He has a bachelor's of science in exercise science and is currently working on a few business projects and ebooks. Chris has had diabetes for 4 years, which has inspired him to get into lifting. His goal is to help influence as many people as possible through fitness, nutrition, and behavior modification. How are you today, Chris? Thank you for joining us.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So as we always do here on the show, we want to start out and get to know you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story of diagnosis and the path you've traveled for the past 4 years to get from there to here?
All right. Well, I should preface the story with I was actually born with 2 fingers on my left hand and a shorter left arm. So I was obviously born, permanently attractive. So I, my whole life, I was told that I couldn't really do much, and I'm just really stubborn and I don't like to listen. So I proved everyone wrong. I learned how to play drums, teach martial arts, teach dance. Then I got into lifting, which was pretty cool, but it was just a hobby until I got diagnosed with diabetes. Now that story is quite interesting, to say the least. I was diagnosed around late 19, early 20, and I was in college. I've always been somewhat of an entrepreneur, so I was promoting a lot of clubs and doing a lot of partying at that time. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. So I started peeing a lot. It was frequent urination, constantly thirsty, and I made the mistake of Googling my symptoms. So I was convinced I had an STD. I was convinced. I needed some penicillin, so I went to a urologist to get it fixed. He said, "Good news, you don't have an STD." I'm like, yes. Bad news is you have diabetes. You have to go to the hospital. I'm like, I would have rather had the STD.
Yeah.
It would have been so much better. So I ended up going to the hospital, and I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Yeah, weird, right? Misdiagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So I was in the hospital for 3 days. I was with a blood sugar of 520. The next day, the doctor came in. He's like, "I'm sorry, but you actually have type 1 diabetes." So we removed the type 2 diabetes and gave me the good one. So that's how I was diagnosed. And it was a very rough diagnosis. But in the hospital, that's when I decided I wanted to switch my whole life around. I was actually going to school for political science. And I actually switched my major to exercise science, thinking in order to help myself, I help to help other people. You teach best what you need to learn most. So I'm actually one of the few people that will say I'm very, very thankful for getting diabetes.
I say the same thing. Do you hear that echo?
Slightly, yes.
Okay. I'm just going to turn me down a little bit. But yeah, I say I'm grateful. I think it has been a gift for me. I think it has been something that has allowed me to grow and become the type of person that I would like to become. Yeah, sorry guys, we're having technical difficulties. Luckily, the people that watch this kind of know that sometimes Google Hangout doesn't always do what you want it to do. This is real life as usual, guys.
Kind of sounds like cool techno-y.
Adjust this. Is that any better?
Now your quality just disappeared. Yeah.
Actually, we might have to.
Oh, you're back.
I can edit this out, but I'm actually going to. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna try to figure this out. Huh.
How are we talking for so long and then now it just goes?
I have no idea. Yeah, I just hear myself. Give me 1 second.
Go ahead. You're good.
I'm just gonna try to put these headphones in. Did that make any difference?
It's It was. Go ahead, talk. You know.
What's that?
What's that? It sounds clear now.
It sounds clear to you?
It sounds clear to you? Yeah.
So every time I say something,
I
say it twice in my ear.
Say it twice in my ear. Echo.
So my tech guy, which is my husband, is at work. So I don't know if we might have to redo this. Actually, here's what I'm gonna do. Kind of sucks, but I have to end this broadcast. Actually, are you hearing that echo or no?
No, I'm not hearing the echo.
All right, so then I'm just gonna turn myself down really low, and I can still hear you. And that way I can kind of concentrate and deal with my double voice. All right, so let's go back. So YouTube has a really cool editing tool, so I can just kind of cut it with the little editing scissors in the middle. So we were talking about diabetes being a gift. So let's go back to that and basically just so what we were saying is that I was saying I see diabetes as a gift to me because it has allowed me to learn and grow and actually become a stronger person. And most people in my family, except for my mom, have been obese and out of shape and very unhealthy. And I do believe that without having diabetes, I would have followed that same path. So I'm kind of on board with you when you say that diabetes is a gift. But why don't you kind of expound on that a little bit more? Because I was really young when I was diagnosed. Obviously, you were 20. So how did you see that as a gift immediately, or did it take time?
I actually did. It was a good reminder as to what I was doing versus where I wanted to be. And it was kind of the tool that gave me the necessary kick to do what I needed to do. So I started, I became a trainer. I ended up building a business, training people. I got a lot of exposure. I was in a lot of magazines. I actually helped a 11-year-old kid with cerebral palsy walk on the beach for the first time. Yeah,
wow.
It was crazy. A big story got done. I was on the news and all that for helping him. I helped an 85-year-old woman with cancer who relapsed twice. Basically, she wrote a letter to the gym I was working at with her, and she said, Chris gave me my life back, at 85 years old, which is nuts. So I did a lot and helped a lot of people, lose weight and just get in shape and feel better about themselves. But diabetes was a tool. It was just another adversity to overcome. And so many people would say, oh, I'm so sorry that you have diabetes and you're disabled. I'm like, listen, I'm sorry you don't have that because I have the drive now. It takes a little pain. It takes a little bit of experience to get where you need to be. And I'm lucky to have that drive. I feel bad for you because you have nothing to push you.
I totally agree. And actually, one of my mentors, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name is Bo Eason. He actually, he was like one of the best, I'm probably going to say the wrong football position, like running backs or something in the 80s. And he just had a 20-year plan when he was a child to become like the best of the best. And he had a lot of adversity and went through a lot of horrible stuff and actually is now an awesome motivational speaker. The point is, he says pain is gold. He's like, your pain, that's your gold. He's like, that's where you're able to grow, to get to levels that you would have never been able to get to, become a human being that you would have never been able to become if you had not suffered. And not saying that you should just suffer meaninglessly, but we all have things that we suffer through. And when you suffer, I guess, proudly, instead of in a way that kind of breaks you down into nothing, it allows you to kind of use that suffering to help the greater good. In this case, it's the diabetes community or someone that's 85 years old with cancer or cerebral palsy or whatever it is that when you're hurting, you can help other people with your own hurt, if that makes sense.
It does. It really does. And that's the bad thing is, diabetes, let's say this is diabetes, this has no negative or positive connotation. It's literally just diabetes. The only meaning it has is what you give it. So if you have a choice to give it a positive or negative connotation, why in the hell would you give it a negative connotation? Why are you actively choosing to be negative when you have the equal choice to be positive? It makes no sense.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you kind of now. But when I was diagnosed in 1991, I was told as a 9-year-old child that I was destined for kind of horror. I was told by adults and figures of authority that I was going to die young and that I was going to have limb amputations and that I was going to have kidney problems and this and that. And as a child, it's difficult to have the mental wherewithal to differentiate between
Definitely.
the ability to have that, make those your own decisions for yourself, because you're listening to the adults. So that's kind of where mine started. And then that's why I kind of spent so many years in that mindset of, oh, well, diabetes is kind of a curse and it's going to ruin my life. So I might as well just do whatever I want anyway, which caused me to have tons of binge eating and depression and all that other kind of stuff. But then as I became an adult and I realized that I could make my own decisions, and exactly what you said is that everything that ever happens to us only means whatever story that we give it. So whatever story that we make up about diabetes is the story that's true to us. I made up the story that diabetes was a curse and that I was a bad person somehow and I deserved to suffer. And now I see diabetes as a gift, and that it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. I made up a new story. And that exactly what you're saying is that we do all have the ability to rewrite our story, to make up a new meaning, change our belief system, because that's the kind of the power of the human mind. We have the ability to write our own stories. And I love that you, as a 20-year-old, which most 20-year-olds would not have that kind of cognitive ability that you did, and that you're here helping people.
Levels of like cognitive ability though, like it went from, wanting to be the hard ass that can overcome anything to learning how to influence. And that's my main goal now, is to influence, to take the mindset that I've built through the hardship and instill that in people who don't quite have that yet. Because at first I just didn't understand why people didn't understand. And I think there's a saying like that: the hardest thing for a smart person is to understand is why someone else doesn't understand, But now I'm really trying to teach people that they really do have the ability to change what is going on. If you can't change what is going on, you can change your reaction to what's going on. Yep. Those are your two choices all the time. So.
Absolutely. So were you always athletic before you got into lifting?
Nope, not at all. I'm that kid that knows nothing about sports. I am not into cars. I'm not into guy stuff. I was in a band. I played drums. I was in a chess club. I danced. I got into hip hop dancing and break dancing. But I always hid my self-conscious stuff through being very out there. I was the guy dancing at the pep rallies, and everyone's like, oh my God, that guy's so cool. I was the popular guy that was never really popular, because I used that as a forefront, for hiding in the shadows. But I got into lifting because because people said I couldn't,
Interesting.
They were like, you can do everything, but lifting, that you just can't, because you can't grab. How are you going to lift because you can't grab, Well, I'm like, all right, let me show you what I can do. Don't do that.
I always tell people this is real life. We're not doing anything scripted here. So on that note, I'll actually link that kind of YouTube video that I've seen and that many people have seen, showing you with kind of your hook grip thing for your deadlift. How did you get that? Like, where did that come from? How did you know? Like, did you design that, or did somebody help you with that?
I've always been like pretty resourceful. The reason like I always wear a glove. I actually started because I couldn't figure out how to play drums, and I really wanted to. I ended up sticking a drumstick through the hole, a finger hole, and I just tightened the glove, and then I played drums like no problem. Yeah, a few videos I'll post on like how I played drums, but I actually saw a company making these hooks for standard people, and I reached out to them. I was like, hey guys, I have like a 4-inch deficit in my arm. Any way you could make this a little longer? And they actually helped me, like without a doubt, no problem. And it went from me being able to lift 100 pounds to 200 to 300 to 400. I got all the way up to my recent competition, deadlifting 606 pounds at 181 pounds, which is the state record. And I broke a lot of state records at the last competition, 4. So it's pretty crazy to see over the years where I've gone. But back then, if you would have asked me if I'd be here now, I'd say no. There's no way, So little advancements over time. Those small changes led to big changes, and that's my biggest advice now: is people don't think about this huge goal of controlling diabetes or this huge goal of like becoming famous or becoming successful. Like, think about what you can do today to make it a little better.
Yeah, I totally agree. I always tell people that if you would have asked me now, probably 10 years ago, that if I would be, a nutritionist and a certified personal trainer, I'd be like, what? I don't even go for a walk. Like, are you kidding me? That's a joke. But I think that's really kind of pertinent, that the fact that, and I have a lot of mentors. I follow a lot of people. I think one of the most important parts of getting to a goal or getting somewhere where you want to go in life is finding somebody that's already gotten there and studying what they've done, having a mentor. So I mentioned Bo Eason, but another person that I follow in business, his name is Brendan Burchard, and he says, don't ever let your current circumstances or competencies make you think that that's what, I mean, I'm totally butchering it, but basically don't base the rest of your life off of your current circumstances or competencies, because that's just not realistic, and you're kind of cutting yourself off, like, for every kind of growth. Just because you can't do something now doesn't mean in 1 year, in 1 week, hell, it doesn't matter. You might be doing that thing that you thought was completely impossible. So that's kind of the mindset that I have around life. And it sounds like you have a similar mindset. And I think that we both want to help other people realize that they can also have that mindset and do whatever they want. That's kind of what I want to help people do, and what you're trying to do as well. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, cool. So do you use a pump? I always like to ask people what they use to manage their diabetes. Do you pump?
Yes, I use a T-Slim with Dexcom. So now I just got on the pump like 4 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
I was on a Medtronic for about a year and I liked it, but I tried to switch to Omnipod, and actually I'm one of the few people that hated Omnipod. I'm pretty sure it like ruined my diabetes.
What?
Because, being a power,
I'm gonna have to step in and say that's crazy, because I love my pod.
Let me explain. Being a power lifter, there's not a lot of power lifters who are diabetics, and that was a little hard for me, because I saw Omnipod as the best for athletes. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome, but the way I wear my belt is all the spots that I would put the Omnipod. So I can't wear the Omnipod there. That completely takes away those spots around the stomach and anywhere in the abdomen. I'm pretty low body fat, so it's harder to put it in any other area aside from my butt. And it got ripped off like 4 times in the first week, from plates sliding along the side of my body to working out to sex even, it came out too many times, and it was very frustrating,
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of find what works for you.
Exactly. And I think just because of the belt situation, because it limits, I have to have a smaller insertion
site. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. So for me, I love the pod, but
because the concept of it is perfect. If I could, do it in other places, that would be amazing. But as of right now, that it just didn't fit the lifestyle that I had.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because you can't have something that holds enough insulin to give you what you need that's going to be as small as any, regular. So it's, hey man, that's cool. So do you love your Dexcom too?
I absolutely love it. I wish I would have been on a long time ago. I didn't want to go on it because, it's something else that I have to have on me. That's terrible. I wish I would have done it a long time ago, but I really do like it. Obviously there's going to be little ups and downs, especially in the beginning where I'm at right now, but I love it. Seeing trends and seeing what's going on, seeing how exercise is affecting, my blood sugars. It's pretty cool. So the geek inside of me is like, oh my God, look at that. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's super awesome. I'm a nerd. I'm a huge nerd. And I love like data and information, and the more numbers I can look at, like, I'm more excited. And I'm lucky. I always tell people that people are conscious about having things attached to their body. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't have I was manually injecting for 21 or 22 out of my 25 years. I've just had my pump and my Dexcom for, I think I'm coming up on 4 years now. But my husband thinks it's sexy. My husband's like, oh, you're a cyborg, because he's a total like science nerd. He's like, oh, my wife is a cyborg. It's so awesome. So you just have to, kind of grow into whatever it is that you're comfortable with. So let me ask you now to tell us about your ebook, because we were talking a little bit about this off air, but I want to hear more about it, and I want everybody else to hear about it too.
Okay, I guess my background in exercise is I do have the bachelor's degree in exercise science and health promotion. I hold a laundry list of certifications that at one point I wanted to be a certification whore, so I just got every certification I possibly could. I really got into corrective exercise and spent a lot of money and time getting muscle activation technique certified and all this recovery for some of the people I was working with. And then I really developed into the nutritional aspect. I started training people for competitions like physique and just getting ready, getting their body as optimal as possible. And recently I decided, well, so many people keep asking me the same question about losing body fat. How can I address and help more people all at once? So I came up with the ebook. And my ebook's actually called The Art of Losing Body Fat, Starving Yourself Fat. So the topic alone, people are like, what do you mean starving yourself fat? I really cover every aspect, from the difference between weight loss and fat loss, the nutritional aspects of how to exactly figure out what you need to eat. I break every nutritional myth, every major nutritional myth you can imagine, from certain foods are fattening, which no food is fattening. Some of the things I address, people just don't really understand. And I go over some things that are relevant to diabetics, as well as like insulin response and insulin sensitivity, depending on the kind of training you do. So it's really helpful in that if you need to know step by step what you need to do to get to a certain body fat, it's science. It's not magic. It's not throw some cardio and throw some paleo and throw some low carb at it and hopefully it works.
Yeah, and like some pills and potions. Yeah, I totally agree.
I don't believe in guessing. I believe in everything should be factual. There's no such thing as guessing. Like, oh, what I'm doing is working, so why should I change it? Okay, let me just ask you this. You can wipe your ass with sandpaper or toilet paper. Both work, but one works better.
That's sound logic that I don't think anybody's going to.
Yeah, it's not about what works. It's about what works best, Why would you do something to sacrifice something being optimal, So I really go over that. I went way too extensive, and I actually did a step-by-step at the end of the book on exactly what to do. Plus, I included examples of average people. Plus, I included key concepts. I even wrote the whole ebook in a way that you can skim it and understand it by only reading the bold parts for people who are kind of lazy. So I know people don't want to sit there and read a 30-page, 40-page ebook. So I made it so easy, so lazy. I know you and me, well, you'll read it cover to cover. For me, I wrote it so that people will get the value with spending the least amount of time, so I understand people are busy. I want to give people value. That's what I want to do. So
when can we expect to see this ebook available?
It will definitely be out by, what is today? April? Is today April?
April 6th.
By next month, May. So hopefully I'm shooting for the beginning of next month, if not mid-month. So definitely in May it'll be out. I'm actually getting it formatted now. So I'm really just trying to get exposure and help people not have questions anymore and stop spreading these myths around on, you have to do cardio to lose weight or lose body fat, and you have to eat certain foods and what diet is the best. I go over all these things, so if you really want to know what diet is the best or how many calories you need to consume, or if
it's eating individual.
It is individual. It's very individual.
That's what people ask me. They're like, well, what diet do you recommend? I say, I don't recommend any diet except eating whole foods and nutrient-dense foods. Everything else is individual. I follow the Daniele diet because that's what works for me. That's what I tell people all the time. You have to find your diet.
The best diet, hands down, is the one you can stick to. That's the only best diet. If you can take the best diet in the world, and if you can only do it for 2 weeks, it's a terrible diet. Most people who go on a diet come off a diet. I'd rather you just kind of eat and get to your goals.
And be on a routine and be consistent, right?
Consistency cannot outwork consistency. So
absolutely. Awesome.
Very simple.
So, I mean, is it okay if I bring up, we talk about relationships and things. And so obviously you have a girlfriend. Is that okay? We talk about who you weight lift with. Now, how long have you guys been doing that? Because I always talk about my husband, sometimes we work out together and it's really nice to have an accountability buddy. It doesn't have to always be your significant other, but it's nice when you have somebody that you can kind of work out with. Do you guys work out together all the time, or do you just train her, or does she train you, or how does that work?
So we actually started, she moved in with me. She needed a place to stay and she moved in with me. I ended up becoming her trainer and we lived together for a year and I was just kind of training her. And then it developed into a relationship, which is awesome. She is competing towards becoming a figure competitor right now, but she already did a powerlifting competition with me. She actually won second place in her first powerlifting meet, which is pretty cool. She's very supportive. We train on relatively separate schedules right now because I'm lifting for powerlifting and she's going for the basically figure female bodybuilding. But I make her programs. She follows them to a T. She's learned a lot through me, and also just she's dedicated, which is what I like. So we push each other. We make sure we each other's on track, and she helps me a lot with my diabetes because of the way I was born. I have a hard time putting in the insertion sites and all that. So she sets that in for me every 3 days. You know, she helps me with everything. So I'm pretty sure she's like a certified diabetes educator by now, because
awesome.
she knows very well how to help me control it. So it's nice having someone who's supportive in every facet of fitness and diabetes and anything like that.
Absolutely. So is there anything else that you're working on other than your ebook that you'd like to share with the general public?
Too much. So motivational speaking is something I'm opening up to. American Diabetes Association just picked me up for an event in July, which is pretty cool. This camp for kids. So I'm still awaiting the exact specifics for it, but the coordinator reached out to me and they already booked me for it. So it's pretty cool. As well as I'm opening a gym, a franchise type gym, which is pretty cool. I raised about half the funding needed for it, and we're about to secure the other half of funding. And that's opening in my area, then hopefully branching out within the next 1.5 to 2 years nationally.
Wow. Just so we know, where is your area?
Where is what?
Where do you live? Like, where is your area?
South Florida, in Boynton Beach.
Okay.
Boca area. So that is, I have a lot of things taking up time, and I'm working constantly. I actually just quit my full-time job to work on all my businesses full-time, which
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a huge move, but from social media to ebooks to starting this other business, trying to get motivational speaking, those are my focus. That's what I want to do. And, I was working so hard at making someone else's dream to succeed, and I let go of my own, and that it kind of killed me on the inside slowly. I made a lot of money doing sales, but it wasn't, I thought I wanted money, it wasn't. That's not what I'm made to do. My destiny, my purpose is not to make money. It's to influence. And that's what I'm focusing on now. I'd rather struggle for the next year so that I can influence more people rather than, make money and not be happy. So I made a big change, but I'm happy I did it. I really am.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And for people who at least know me, they know that's kind of my whole mantra in life, is to do what makes you happy, do what makes you feel fulfilled, do what makes you feel joyous. And for me, it's always in order to achieve that, you have to be serving others. I don't see the possibility of being truly happy unless you're being of service to other people and allowing whatever it is that you're passionate about to be beneficial to other people, because humans, we're meant to connect. We're meant to be part of a community. That's why I love the diabetes community so much, because there's so many supportive people out there. And, whether you've never even went into a Facebook group or anything, like, you could just join a Facebook group, go in there and post something, and 25, 35 people that you don't know will jump in and give you heartfelt advice, because guess what? We all get what you're going through and we want to help you. And I think that once we all kind of step into that, our lives become more enriched. And whether it's, you're not necessarily, maybe you're out there watching, you don't want to start your own business, and that's fine. But maybe you do want to help other people, I always tell people, just take that step outside of your comfort zone, whatever that is, joining a meetup group with other people with diabetes. There's a great, for women, there's Diabetes Sisters. They have, meetups all over the whole country. There's just always ways to get involved into a conversation with another person with diabetes. And I'm a firm believer that for most people who are struggling with their diabetes management practices, the missing piece is regular conversation with somebody else who has diabetes. They're not even a doctor. They're not a certified diabetes educator. They just have diabetes too and understand. And when you get that connection, all of a sudden, so many other things seem possible. And I really believe that is just one of the most important parts of consistent, healthy diabetes management practices, is being involved in regular conversations with other people who get it. And
it's funny that you pointed that out. The reason I'm on the T-Slim pump is because I met another diabetic who showed me how well a control he was, Within 2 days, I went to my doctor and I started the process of getting the pump. Being on the diabetes group on Facebook, I see so many people give advice, and I'm like, oh, that's smart. I don't care how much education I have or someone else has. There's always things to learn from people with experience, So I definitely appreciate that. And I'm actually on my YouTube channel, I'm starting to where I'm addressing diabetic issues like blood sugar effects of anaerobic versus aerobic exercise. Like, when I run, does my sugar drop low or does it go high? When I lift heavy weights, does it go low or does it go high? Those kind of questions I'm addressing. So anyone who has questions, feel free to shoot them to me so I can address those, and maybe even address you in those questions so that we can help more people understand how to control their sugar. And not be so, torn up by diabetes, because it's not as bad as most people make it out to be.
I agree. And I think, and just as always, so don't, guys, if you're watching, don't freak out and like start looking for, I always link every single thing under the video. So I will give everything Chris gives me as of ways to contact him to submit your questions. Every single thing will be linked under the video, so you can just scroll down and get that. But I think what you said is also true, is that the experience of other people can often be the key that unlocks your kind of stuck situation. And not in any way downing doctors or endocrinologists or anything like that, but most endocrinologists are not A, trained in physical fitness in any way, and B, they don't have diabetes themselves. So they're not accustomed to the lived experience of diabetes. They're accustomed to the medical external treatment of a condition that doesn't, and you could ask them 150 questions about your diabetes, and they're just going to regurgitate to you what they've read in a medical handbook. And that's most of the time not necessarily going to answer your question. So, the Diabetic Athletes group on Facebook, I'll link that as well, just because, our mutual friend Rodney, who, guys, if you want to see another awesome interview, from another very strong, capable diabetic, scroll back and see my interview with Rodney Miller. But, there's just so many of us out there, and we are all willing to help you. I don't care who you are. We are all willing to help you. So don't be shy. And if you have questions, submit them to Chris, and he'll get them in his YouTube. Maybe he'll be a YouTube star.
Yes.
So anything before we kind of move towards the end and I start asking you about your tips, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I think I'm pretty much covered it. I went over a lot.
All right, cool. So as we always do when we come to a close here, and you've only had 4 years, I don't say only, I mean 4 years is plenty of time, but what have been your top 3 tips for thriving with diabetes over the past 4 years?
Lifting weights is a huge, huge benefit, to your A1C. Almost all studies that cover A1C related to anaerobic or lifting exercise, it improves your A1C. It improves your body's ability to uptake glucose. So why not lift weights? That'll help a lot, Another aspect is just being mindful of what you're eating, Take a little bit of time to kind of look in, maybe even research the effect of food on your blood sugar. It's not just sugar people need to worry about, It's not just carbs people need to worry about. They need to realize most foods are not in a vacuum. When you eat food, it's protein, carbs, and fats. There's going to be a balance. So that effect is going to delay it. So you don't understand why you're bolusing and it's not going down, because you didn't take into account the delayed digestion of carbs because you had a pizza, So being cognizant of what you're eating and the effect on your blood sugar is going to be huge. Research your stuff, And the third thing is really just being positive, having a good mindset on it, and understanding one bad moment is not a bad day. One bad day is not a bad life, So you can't overwhelm yourself with issues. Everyone has problems, and 10 times out of 10, there's people out there with bigger problems than you have. And the problem you have that you think is a 10 out of 10 in severity is probably like a 4 out of 10. You're still alive. You're not dead. The worst that could happen is not the worst that could happen. You're alive, So just be positive. Understand that it might not be good now, but tomorrow is going to be brighter. You're going to be better. Do what you need to do to be better, and choose to fight, choose to make it better. It's not going to happen by itself. You got to choose to be better. So along with a good mindset, exercising, and just being mindful of what you're doing, those are my 3 best tips.
Awesome. I love it. And even just to kind of add on to that, not one bad day doesn't make a bad week. Guess what? Coming from me, where I had 10 plus bad years, doesn't make a bad life, because now I couldn't be happier. And I spent more than 10 years of my life very depressed, very overweight, thinking diabetes was a curse. And that's just not, I'm different now. So don't let those bad days, weeks, months, years, doesn't matter what happened in the past. The past does not equal the future unless you let it. And so that's a really great way to kind of close this off. So Chris, thank you for joining, and I will link all of his information. Any way that Chris wants you to be able to find him, you'll be able to find it under the YouTube video and also under the video on my blog. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and I will see everybody on the next episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Take care, guys.
Thank you.